Right in the buzzing heart of Seoul, the skyscraper loomed like a flex. Inside, the bedroom TV buzzed with breaking news. The shareholder meeting to determine the chairman of the Samjeon Group, one of the top 3 conglomerates in the country, has just concluded after 13 hours. After an intense meeting, the next chairman of Samjeon Group has been decided as CEO John Song-guk. Cue the flashing lights, camera shutters going off like fireworks. Standing dead center was a sharp-looking man, soaking it all in. John Song-guk grinned at the screen. Yeah, that's him on TV. No drama, no dirt, just pure grind. He let out a hearty laugh, full of pride. He didn't just want the win, he wanted the applause too. Deserved every bit of it in his book. Man worked for it. Now he was the king of Samjeon. Dude had hustled for this. Books? Nailed it. Gym regular. Studied abroad. Kept his bonehead siblings in check. Cleaned up his uncle's dumpster fire. And didn't let his arranged marriage partner stir the pot. He played the game clean and sharp. Built a shiny image the public lapped up like whipped cream. His face, all over fan feeds. Now here he was, clinking the rim of the most expensive wine bottle money could buy, vibing with the taste of payoff. All that grind, just cashed in. Just as he whipped out his phone, ready to axe a few underperformers for sport, something off hit him, like a glitch in the Matrix. His body went weird. Chest tightened. Panic slammed in. Before he could even curse, boom, hit the floor. His heart was throwing a full-blown tantrum. Breathing? Out the window. He remembered his grandfather, Samjeon's original boss, who dropped dead from the same damn thing. Jeon had promised himself he wouldn't go out like that. But fate's a funny little punk. Darkness creeped in, and it was lights out. When he blinked back to life, a voice hit his ears. Hey, come on, now my son. Wait, son? Suddenly he was in someone's arms. A baby's body. Squishy, warm, soft, definitely not 183 centimeters of gym-hardened CEO. He touched his cheeks marshmallow mode. Panic set in hard. What the hell? He screamed. Not just any scream. Angry baby levels of meltdown. Around him, a cramped room in a rundown neighborhood. Bed as old as time. His hands were mini. His legs, tiny stubs. Yet someone just called him. Song-guk. His mom, Kim So-young, just 21, looked at him with sparkly eyes, muttering how her baby boy was already a heart stealer. His dad, John Ji-sung, only 23, looked like he just won the baby jackpot. They were swooning. He was not. He sat there, absorbing the horror. This was real. No mansion, no tailored suits, no 10-figure net worth, just dust, peeling paint, and that awful formula milk smell. Lucky, you say? He mumbled. Well, tried to. Instead, he spat the nipple out with vengeance. Dad blinked. Huh? What's wrong, buddy? John wanted to yell. What's wrong? Bro, I had abs. I lifted 500 on the big 3. I was built like a Greek god. Now I'm a 3-head tall squish ball. He remembered everything. Prestige, muscles, money. The legend that was him. Now, just a soft, helpless blob with rich parents swapped for a broke couple with a whole lot of love but zero resources. Both were orphanage kids with nothing but each other. Earlier, he was sipping luxury wine worth more than some people's rent. Now, a dusty bottle of formula. But damn, the formula smacked. The body knew what it wanted. Before he could act tough again, instincts took over. He grabbed the bottle like a champ. First thing you learn as a baby? Feeding time ain't a joke. Both parents were melting over their good boy, all heart eyes and baby talk. Dad leaned in to plant a kiss on Song-guk's cheek, but the moment lip met squish, the baby CEO flinched. Gross. Full body cringe. Affection between two men? Not his vibe. Dying on the peak day of his power run and respawning as a baby? Straight up absurd. But the real headache? These two people. Way too affectionate. Drowning in cheese. It was uncomfortable. A weird, aching feeling he couldn't shake. Having parents. Something John Song-guk had never known. In his past life, his parents were ghosts in expensive clothes, always buried in work. They dumped the younger siblings on him like it was his second job. And trust, those siblings were wild units. Walking disasters. The injustice of it all hit him like a truck. He bawled his lungs out, red-faced and furious. Dad tilted his head. Oh, sleepy after the meal? No, Song-guk wanted to scream. I'm furious, not tired. But babies don't get the final say. His eyelids betrayed him. Boom. Out like a light. Second thing you can't fight in a baby's body? Sleep, obviously. While Mini Song-guk dozed off, Dad finally got a breather. He stretched, yawned, shuffled to the TV, and clicked it on. Needed some noise. The screen lit up with breaking news. Samjeon chairman John Jushin bribery scandal over luxury gift boxes. Cut to an old man in a wheelchair looking tired but proud. Bribery allegations have been raised against Samjeon Group's chairman, John Jushin. Today, the prosecution began its investigation, with Chairman John Jushin appearing in person for questioning. That name hit Sung-guk like cold water. John Jushin. His eyes flew open. No delay. He shot up, sitting straight like a grown man. Both parents blinked. Did he just sit up? On his own? But Sung-guk had his reason. The man on that screen, his late grandfather. Alive, real, in this timeline. Little Sung-guk plopped himself right in front of the TV, eyes glued. The news was rolling out details of the infamous Apple Box bribery case. Chairman John Jushin of the Samjeon Group has been accused of bribing politicians using boxes disguised as Apple gifts. He blinked, then stared harder. His tiny hands clenched the edge of the mat. That's him. His late grandfather, the Lion of Samjeon, alive and well, on TV no less. Shock flooded him, followed by a quiet storm of memories. This exact scene, this headline, the chaos. He knew it all. Year 10 of his past life. That's when it happened. His grandfather got dragged into the scandal, blamed, slandered, crucified by the media. They painted Samjeon as nothing but a den of corruption, a dirty empire greased with bribes. It was garbage, of course, a power play. Enemies smelled blood and went in for the kill. He remembered how Grandpa called him, a scrawny 10-year-old, over and told him to push his wheelchair through the press crowd. A total PR stunt, sure. But for Sung-guk, it was his first act on the big stage. The moment he stepped into the world's spotlight. That day, everyone saw him, John Sung-guk, heir to the empire. But now, watching the screen, his heart dropped. It wasn't him pushing the wheelchair, it was John Tae-guk, his idiot younger brother. Face tight with nerves, jaw clenched, hands on the handles of the chair like he belonged there. That brat. In the old timeline, he'd been sent abroad to study and ended up learning how to party, snort and waste fortunes. A full-blown disaster in human form. And now he was taking his spot. Being a baby? Whatever. Time travel? Weird, but fine. But losing everything. His legacy and his rightful throne? Again? Hell no. The rage boiled over. He let out a raw, angry cry that shook the tiny room. A baby's wail, yeah, but it was loaded with fury. Late at night, the lights dimmed and the cheap heater hummed faintly. His mom walked in, warm smile on her face, holding a tiny cup of freshly made apple juice. But Sung-guk wasn't having it. He smacked her hand away without a second thought. His glare, ice cold. His mood, absolute storm. He didn't want interruptions. Not now. His mom looked worried, stepping back a little. Just then, the door creaked open. His dad came in, wearing that proud grin like he hit the jackpot. "Guess what? Boss gave me all the leftover meat today," he said, holding up a plastic bag like a trophy. Dude was glowing. Being a chef at the nearby jockbowl joint wasn't glamorous, but free meat, big win. He was ready to whip up something tasty when his wife grabbed his arm. "Wait, look at Sung-guk." The little guy was glued to the TV again, eyes darting like a spy. "If we change the channel or turn it off, he just cries," she whispered. Dad squinted. "Again? He's watching news? Again?" So, he decided to intervene. With the goofiest grin, he crouched down and stepped right between Sung-guk and the screen. "Peekaboo! Come on, play with Daddy!" Wrong move. Mini Sung-guk's eyes narrowed like a hawk. He grabbed his dad's finger, his tiny hand surprisingly firm. His face, pure fury. If he could talk, he would have screamed, "Get out of the way and turn that thing back on." Dad blinked. "Wait, is he mad?" Mom sighed. "I don't know what's gotten into him lately, but Sung-guk knew. He had to keep watching the news. Every detail mattered. Grandpa Jushin's trial, Tae-guk's rise, the timelines. He needed it all. He needed info, every bit of it. How did he get here? How do things change? How does he take it back? That's all he cared about. But fate, or rather Mom, had other plans. She scooped him up. "Time to eat," she cooed. No, he screamed inside. The TV flicked off. His lifeline gone. He squirmed in her arms, tears brimming. He didn't want food. He didn't want comfort. He wanted power. His power, his mind screamed. "Do you know how hard I fought to earn my place as Samjeon's successor? You think I'll just hand it over to John Tae-guk? To that idiot?" His tears spilled. But this time, they weren't a baby's cry. They were a man's silent scream. His mother gently patted his back, humming softly as his little body leaned into her. The rage, the tears, all melted away under her warmth. And like some switch flipped, Sung-guk's angry little pout softened. His forehead rested in her lap. His eyes fluttered shut. "What's happening to me?" he thought faintly. "I'm getting dumber, I swear." It was a scrambled mess of baby instincts, short attention spans, and wild emotions. He hated it. But still, her hand kept patting, and he was out, just like that. Deep sleep, drool and all. His parents finally relaxed. Dad slumped. Man, finally. Mom exhaled. I'm just worried. He hasn't even said Mom or Dad yet. He's almost a year old. Just stares at the news like it's some drama. Dad frowned. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. I mean, what do I even know about parenting? They didn't have money, no college degrees, no fancy house, but love, they had more than enough. He'll be okay, his mom whispered, stroking his hair. He's our boy. A few days later, Sunguk sat slumped near the TV, his tiny shoulders drooping in despair. Depression hit hard. He'd spent days fake napping just to binge the news, hoping for one useful clue, anything that could explain his reincarnation, how to fix it, how to stop Tae-guk from taking what was his. But nothing. Just boring politics, scandals he already knew, and weather updates. The world moved forward like his death never happened. Meanwhile, he was stuck in a tiny body with squishy cheeks and a diet of mashed bananas. I'm tired of this, he thought, eyes blank. His mom, cheerful as ever, knelt down beside him. Wanna watch TV? He didn't even flinch. He'd already given up, so she picked him up instead. Let's go for a walk. The flowers are blooming today. The weather was kind, the breeze soft. His mom smiled brightly as she stepped outside, holding him close with a small shopping bag in the other hand. His pout remained, but even he couldn't deny the sky looked nice today. As they walked toward the market, a woman stepped into view. Unit 107? It was the landlord, younger lady, wearing her office outfit. She smiled politely. Morning, his mom smiled back and bowed. Good morning, the woman waved, walking toward her office. And just like that, they continued. The quiet road led past a local construction site, the air filled with the clang of metal and buzzing saws. His mom hummed, bouncing him lightly. Look at those flowers, Sunguk. Pretty, right? He just stared ahead. But something about this path, this moment, felt like it was leading somewhere. Their landlord is also beside them. Sunguk looked up at his mom, thinking, why does she talk so damn much? Always yapping about flowers and sunshine like it meant something. But then, his attention snapped. The sound of clanging metal grabbed him, loud and sharp. He turned his head fast. The construction site right beside them, some steel rods were shaking loose. His heart jumped. The metal started falling, right toward where he and his mom stood. He froze, his mom froze, and then crash! A mother's instinct immediately took over. In that critical moment, she focused solely on protecting her child, disregarding her own safety. The next instant, a cloud of dust engulfed everything around them. As it slowly settled, the fallen metal rods became visible on the ground. The landlord, who had been standing nearby, quickly rushed toward her. Deep concern etched his face. Amid the chaos, the mother was found lying beneath the metal rods. Blood was trickling from her head, yet her eyes were fixed solely on Sunguk. Despite her pain, her only concern was whether he was safe. With trembling hands and a voice filled with fear, Sunguk approached her. Mom, you can't die. Mom, he called out, his voice shaking. Panic and fear overwhelmed him. It was clearly an emergency. She was rushed to the hospital without delay. At the hospital, a construction worker explained the situation to the medical staff, detailing how the construction materials had collapsed onto the woman. The doctors quickly completed the necessary formalities and sprang into action. Moments later, So Young cried out in pain. Slowly opening her eyes, she saw her husband standing before her. She attempted to sit up, but he gently urged her to lie down, reminding her that she had just survived an accident. Ignoring his words, her first question was about Sunguk. Where is Sunguk? Is he okay? She asked urgently, her eyes searching. Her husband's expression softened. He's right there, he said, gesturing toward the blanket where Sunguk had been lying beside her. He gently picked up their son, whose tears had left visible trails on the blanket. The mother reached out her hand, pulling her child into her lap, grateful beyond words that he was unharmed. Sunguk, his nose running and cheeks flushed, looked at her, and then, without warning, tears began pouring from his eyes. He was deeply shaken. He broke down, sobbing loudly. Why didn't you think about your own life, Mom? What would we have done if you had really died? His voice cracked with emotion, revealing how scared he had been. The father stood silently, overwhelmed with relief that both mother and child were safe. But the moment of peace was interrupted when the mother glanced around and realized she was in a private hospital room. Puzzled, she turned to her husband. Why did you book such an expensive room? Her husband, a slight blush creeping up his face, smiled softly. I don't think your condition is something to take lightly, he said. You need complete rest. She looked at him, confused. What do you mean by complete rest? Why? At that moment, her eyes landed on a banner at the end of the bed. It read, Strict bed rest for pregnant woman. A wave of realization washed over her. No way am I really pregnant, she whispered. The atmosphere shifted into one of joy and amazement. Her husband nodded, beaming. Yes, you just need to recover well, for both your sake and the baby's. It was a moment of overwhelming happiness. The family, having just faced the edge of tragedy, now found themselves celebrating the beginning of a new life. But just as their heartfelt moment was unfolding, a sudden knock on the door interrupted the peace. A nurse stepped in politely, saying, "Excuse me, visiting hours are almost over for today." Slightly embarrassed, the father nodded. "Ah, yes, I'll be leaving right away," he replied. Turning to So Young, he gently encouraged her to use this time to rest and regain her strength. "I'll be back tomorrow," he added with a smile. They exchanged warm goodbyes. On his way home, the father walked alongside little Song-guk. Despite the emotional warmth of the day, reality quietly returned. The father's shoes were worn out, barely holding together. A hint of worry crept into his expression. He wondered how they would get home, as even the bus fare seemed too much at the moment. Song-guk, puzzled by the hesitation, looked up. "Do we not even have money to get home by bus? Seriously? We can't even afford that." The frustration in his thoughts was clear. What a miserable household this is. But then memories rushed back. He thought of his father, working endlessly to support the family, and his mother, who had risked her life without hesitation to protect him. The weight of love overpowered any feelings of resentment. Looking up at his father with newfound understanding, he said confidently, "Dad." The father paused, stunned. It was the first time Song-guk had spoken that word. Overwhelmed, he smiled, deeply moved by this simple yet powerful moment. 1 week later, a warm atmosphere filled their small home. Food was arranged on the table, and a cheerful note was posted nearby. So Young's safe discharge, welcome party. Song-guk, dressed in traditional attire, radiated confidence. Both parents beamed with happiness, delighted at how adorable their child looked. The father eagerly snapped photos, praising, "He's more handsome than celebrity babies." Song-guk, clearly flustered by all the attention, closed his eyes and sighed in quiet frustration. "Is this really the time for a celebration?" he thought. Though he couldn't say it out loud, his thoughts were conflicted. You struggled so much just to pay the hospital bills, even saved on bus fare. When every penny counts, shouldn't we be skipping parties like this? The old Song-guk would have criticized them for such choices, but now he couldn't bring himself to ruin this moment. His eyes instead sparkled with quiet joy. He saw something far more valuable than money, the deep, unconditional love his parents gave him. Love that made his mother throw herself in harm's way to protect him without hesitation. And so, he joined in the celebration, his eyes steady with confidence. During the past week, while his mother recovered in the hospital, Song-guk had made a decision. He realized he needed to step up. Realistically, his parents would never escape poverty on their own. They lacked financial knowledge, no investment skills, no savings, barely managing to make ends meet, and soon a major economic crisis was coming. He knew all this. After all, he came from the future, right? His thoughts were suddenly interrupted by the ringing of the doorbell. His mother stood up to answer it. A voice echoed from outside. It was Kim Young, their landlord. As the door opened, the landlord's wife stepped inside, her expression kind. She had come to check on So Young's health after the accident. As the conversation flowed, she suddenly looked towards Song-guk and, with a curious smile, asked, "Have you ever considered letting Song-guk become a child actor?" The scene shifts to the following day. The audition building gleamed under the morning sun, its sleek exterior reflecting the buzz of energy within. Inside, open auditions were being held to cast child actors for an upcoming project. Outside the building, So Young and Song-guk stood together. Song-guk's face glowed with excitement. Finally, he thought, something is happening in my life, something good. But just as hope began to rise, hesitation crept in from beside him. So Young wasn't nearly as confident. Anxiety clouded her expression as she looked up at the towering building. She was seriously considering turning back. Seeing this, Song-guk grew visibly upset. How could she think of backing out now, he wondered. This is a golden opportunity. And just as frustration began to surface, So Young, swallowing her fear, finally took a step forward toward the building's entrance. Her mind drifted to a few days earlier, to the conversation with their landlord. Back then, when the landlord first brought up the idea of Song-guk becoming a child actor, both parents were confused. Sensing their hesitation, the landlord elaborated. She explained that the company she worked for had taken on a television commercial project for a well-known conglomerate. They were holding auditions to cast a critical child actor role. That's when her eyes fell on Song-guk. She observed him carefully, his sharp features, expressive eyes, and natural presence. He wasn't just good-looking, he had potential. That was why she had suggested he audition. Returning to the present, They now stood waiting outside the elevator. So Young glanced at Sung-guk, but he seemed lost in thought, though not with worry. Quite the opposite. Sung-guk was laughing quietly, filled with self-assurance. Those destined to succeed will succeed, he mused. And this is my moment. He envisioned all the possibilities ahead. Recognition, success, wealth. This audition was his gateway to earning real money. From a young age in his previous life, he had been immersed in the entertainment world. Cameras and makeup were second nature to him. He had grown up in the spotlight, no less refined than the country's top actors. People had even called him a chaebol who could pass as an actor. A sly smile crept onto his face. This kind of audition, he thought. I'll breeze through it, claim the prize money, the guarantees, all of it. So Young watched him, puzzled by his strange amusement. She couldn't quite read what was going through his mind. What she didn't realize was that he was already thinking 10 steps ahead, about the money, the success, and how to reinvest it all. Still, her nerves remained unsettled. As she hesitated at the elevator doors, another contestant stepped in ahead of them. With the gap closing, So Young finally gathered her courage and followed inside. The audition journey had officially begun. Both children seemed pleased to see one another. Well, sort of. So Young looked at the other child with a smile and commented softly, "He's really cute." The caretaker beside the child responded proudly, "This is our young Master Jay." But before the moment could settle, a woman stepped into, elegant, stern, and visibly irritated. "Don't talk to me, lady," she snapped. She was the mother of the other child and, judging by her tone, not in the mood for pleasantries. Her eyes narrowed at So Young. "So you're here for the audition too? What, trying to scope out the competition?" Caught off guard, So Young quickly responded, "No, that's not it at all." But the woman smirked arrogantly. "Well, struggle all you want. Our Jay will win anyway." Listening to this, Sung-guk's expression hardened. What did she just say? There was something in his glare, sharp and unshakable, that made the woman pause. A flicker of uncertainty crossed her face. Why does that kid's gaze feel so intense, she wondered. She was the textbook definition of arrogance, draped in luxury brands from head to toe, with a personal nanny trailing behind her like a servant. The very image of an entitled madam from a wealthy household. Sung-guk, clearly annoyed, clenched his jaw. Her attitude irritated him to the core. He made up his mind then and there. I'll completely destroy them in this audition. The scene shifted to the studio, where the directors were already filming the auditions for child actors. While So Young was visibly tense, Sung-guk remained composed. He knew this was just a basic screen test, nothing complex. The team simply wanted to see how the kids looked on camera and if they could act, even just a little. But under the harsh lights and unfamiliar setting, most young children found it hard to stay calm. Suddenly, the director called out, "Child number 10. Lee Jae." The same arrogant woman from earlier confidently approached the director. Recognizing her, the director greeted her warmly. "Oh my, isn't this the wife of Daopeng Paper?" Hearing that, Sung-guk's eyes widened slightly. "So, she's from Daopeng Paper." He recalled the company, a respectable mid-sized business. Not top tier, though. In fact, it was the subcontractor of a subcontractor of a subcontractor for Samjeon. Basically, he thought, way beneath the Samjeon group. In the next scene, little Jay was placed under the spotlight for his audition. His mother, standing nearby, urged him sharply, "Smile!" But the child wasn't coping well with the pressure. His face twisted with discomfort, and moments later, he broke into loud sobs. Trying to maintain professionalism, the director turned to the mother and said, "I'm sorry, but with him crying like this, it's going to be difficult to continue." The woman waved it off. "What are you talking about? He'll stop soon." But the director, now firm, replied, "There are other children waiting. We need to keep things moving." Still, she wasn't ready to give up. "Just wait a little," she insisted. But the director didn't waver. "Next child, please. Number 12, Jaewon, Sung-guk." And with that, it was time for our protagonist to take the stage. It was the main director who decisively called for the auditions to continue. The woman, clearly offended by being dismissed so casually, glared in frustration at him. Her pride was wounded. Meanwhile, hearing the name Sung-guk announced over the speaker, So Young suddenly froze, visibly baffled. Her expression shifted as she rushed forward toward the stage. Without a word, she moved past everyone and helped place Sung-guk onto the audition platform. The sub-director stepped in, looking at Sung-guk with a warm smile. "Let's begin your audition." So Young, standing to the side, was filled with anxious curiosity. How is Sung-guk going to handle this? She wondered. But before she could think further, the arrogant woman, still not ready to let go of her ego, stormed toward the front, roughly pushing So-young aside to get a better look. She was desperate to witness how this child, the one who dared to challenge her own, would perform. Song-guk caught her gaze and smiled with a quiet confidence. Yes, he thought. Watch carefully. I'll show you exactly why I succeed, and why your son doesn't. Without hesitation, he shifted his expression into a bright, adorable smile. It was pure, charming, and effortless. The entire room seemed to pause. That one smile made hearts skip a beat. The main director suddenly shouted, "Camera! Someone get me my camera!" Quickly, the camera was handed over, and the director positioned himself, aiming the lens at Song-guk. "Look this way," he instructed, and Song-guk turned with just the right angle, meeting the lens with sparkling eyes. The director continued with his directions, "Give me a side-angle pose," and Song-guk responded instantly, executing it perfectly. Next, he was told to use the props on stage. Song-guk handled each one naturally, shifting poses and expressions with the ease of a seasoned actor. The room was silent in awe. The director's amazement was written all over his face. This child, he's a genius. Meanwhile, the arrogant woman watched in disbelief, her confidence unraveling with each second. As Song-guk lit up the stage, she could do nothing but burn with envy. The director was visibly impressed by Song-guk's performance. His approval was unmistakable, and the room was left in awe at the brilliance this child displayed so effortlessly. After a brief pause, the director made his decision. He would proceed with casting Song-guk immediately. So-young stood stunned, trying to process the moment. Meanwhile, Song-guk remained composed, as though he had anticipated this outcome all along. The director, now stepping forward with enthusiasm, approached So-young. Introducing himself as Director Kwak Junha, he offered a warm handshake and said with a delighted smile, "If possible, let's proceed with the contract." The word contract caused So-young to pause in uncertainty. Her expression gave away her inexperience with anything related to the entertainment world. She was clearly out of her element. Noticing her confusion, Director Kwak gently pulled back his excitement and apologized, realizing he might have rushed things. "I understand this is sudden," he said kindly, "but your child, he has overflowing talent. Not only is he a natural in front of the camera, but the way he responded to every one of my directions, it was as if he completely understood what I meant." And the truth was, Song-guk did understand everything. Every cue, every emotion. He had lived this life once before. The director's eyes gleamed. "I'm truly excited to work with him." But just as the moment was filled with quiet joy, it was abruptly shattered. The arrogant woman from before, unable to accept defeat, lashed out. In a fit of rage, she grabbed one of the light stands and threw it to the ground. The crash echoed across the studio, silencing the room. "I demand a final audition," she shouted. Her voice was shrill with entitlement. "You must give my son another chance. This isn't fair." She wasn't yelling just at the director. Her fury extended to So-young as well. She simply couldn't accept anyone other than her own child, Jae, being the selected candidate. Despite the chaos, the final audition list was soon displayed. Only 2 names were on it, Song-guk and Jae. The director turned toward them and said calmly, "Please wait outside for a moment." So-young, though still rattled by the lady's aggression, glanced toward her son. Seeing his name on the final list brought a quiet joy to her heart. There were so many charming, bright children here today, but to her, of course, her son looked the best. Still, nerves began creeping in. She turned away, her heart pounding. Why do I suddenly feel so anxious? Her change in expression didn't go unnoticed. Jae's nanny, having observed her closely, walked over. "Is something wrong?" she asked with polite concern. So-young hesitated for a beat before replying softly, "I need to use the restroom." The nanny gently offered her help, stepping forward with a warm smile. She took Song-guk into her arms, allowing So-young a moment to step away and collect herself. As she cradled the child, her gaze softened. There was something remarkable about him, something truly special. She looked at Song-guk kindly, whispering to herself, "This child, he's really something else." But her words didn't go unnoticed. The arrogant lady, who had been lurking nearby, overheard the compliment, and her fury ignited. Her eyes widened with indignation as she stormed toward the nanny. "What did you just say?" she snapped. "Are you seriously comparing that child to my Jae?" The nanny froze, startled by the sudden outburst. "Do you want to get fired?" the lady yelled, her voice echoing through the hallway. "If you're so fond of that kid, why don't you just raise him yourself?" Song-guk, still resting in the nanny's arms, felt a wave of frustration rise within him. He wanted nothing more than to put that arrogant woman in her place. A slap to bring her back to reality. How satisfying that would be. But of course, he was a baby, powerless to act. Just then, the studio door creaked open, and the sub-director stepped out with a troubled expression. His eyes scanned the hallway, clearly searching for someone. "Is Songguk's guardian here?" he asked. So Young hadn't returned yet. Seizing the moment, the sub-director turned toward the arrogant lady and began speaking. As their conversation continued, Songguk remained silent but completely attentive, absorbing every word. The arrogant woman took the opportunity to vent. "I signed up for this audition to create a few memories for my Jay," she scoffed. "Not to have him compete with some random kid. But Songguk has also been selected for the final round." The assistant director replied, hesitantly. "Don't be ridiculous," she said, waving her hand dismissively. Jay was already chosen as the winner. Songguk's eyes narrowed. Of course, this was one of those auditions, the type where the results were pre-arranged. A carefully staged performance to elevate one child, hers, while using others as props to validate the process. He had seen it all before in his past life. The sub-director glanced around nervously. "If the main director finds out, we'll be in trouble." But the woman didn't flinch. "So what?" she retorted. Assistant director explained her. "He's award-winning director from overseas. He's popular, sure, but the higher-ups won't touch him. Just keep this quiet." Still visibly uneasy, the sub-director shifted the conversation. "So, are you prepared for the final audition?" "Of course," she answered confidently. "I hired a private tutor. Jay's been practicing for days." "That's all we need," the assistant director replied, relaxing a little. "There's no way Songguk can outperform Jay, not after all that training." He turned his attention to Jay, calling him over to rehearse. "Let's go over your lines. Repeat after me." But just a few feet away, still nestled in the nanny's arms, Songguk wore a calm, knowing smile. He'd already heard every word of the script, and now he was ready. The stage lights flickered on, signaling the start of the final audition. Both Jay and Songguk stood on stage. The challenge was simple yet crucial. The baby who could pronounce the lines naturally and perform the scene convincingly would be declared the winner. So Young stood at the edge of the stage, her heart pounding with anxiety for Songguk, but her son radiated calm confidence. The director gave the cue. Action. The assistant director followed, saying, "Babies, please look this way." Songguk, however, already understood. How the babies responded to shooting directions was part of the evaluation. He knew exactly what to do. Positioning himself carefully, he began walking directly toward the camera and the director, ensuring he was in the perfect frame. Meanwhile, Jay headed in the opposite direction, toward his mother. The assistant director urged him to focus on the camera, but the lead director interjected. "Shall we leave that baby for now and begin the test with Songguk?" With a nod, the assistant director moved to assist. "Provide him the lines," the lead director instructed. The assistant director, confident that Songguk, unlike the prepped and practiced Jay, would surely falter, leaned in and delivered the audition lines. To his utter disbelief, Songguk repeated them flawlessly, his delivery adorned with a bright and innocent smile. Every word landed with charm and clarity. The assistant director froze in confusion, while the lead director's eyes gleamed. His instincts had been right. This child was exceptional. But the arrogant lady wasn't about to admit defeat. She quickly lifted Jay into her arms and called out, "Director, please watch my child as well." Though reluctant, the director agreed. He asked gently, "Can you try saying Daddy?" Jay blinked, confused, then suddenly burst into loud, uncontrollable sobs. The arrogant lady stood frozen, stunned. "I trained him for this," she exclaimed. The director raised an eyebrow. "Trained? What do you mean by that?" Before the conversation could escalate, the assistant director swiftly intervened. "Let's wrap up the audition here." Back in the spotlight, Songguk remained calm and collected. There was a quiet triumph in his gaze. He knew he had given his best. Then the announcement rang out. The next generation's child actor, final winner of the audition, Lee Jae. "What?" So Young's voice trembled. Songguk too was stunned. They had clearly won. And yet they lost. Even victory, it seemed, could be stolen.